Barack Obama gave a number of interviews, including to CBS's 60 Minutes, which we will get to, but also to Gayle King. And it was very interesting to hear Barack Obama's perspective on the last 4 years and on the election that Joe Biden has defeated Donald Trump and the implications. And one of the messages that Barack Obama focused on, not just in this interview, but in others as well, is that this is not normal. And it's an important message. We've been talking about hyper-normalization for 4 years. Let's take a listen to the former president here.
I think we were in a circumstance in this election in which certain norms, certain institutional values that are so extraordinarily important had been breached. That it was important for me, as somebody who had served in that office, to simply let people know this is not normal.
So I've talked about this, and I talked about this when Donald Trump was elected and we saw things are going to be insane. I started saying, I am going to try to prevent the normalization of insanity. And it's something we've continued talking about and we've had to fight. And it happens to all of us. There is no way to see daily scandal and embarrassment and humiliation day after day after day and not to some degree become desensitized to it, to another attack on the media, to another attack on democracy, to another attack on the sort of fundamentals that this country is based on. And Barack Obama nicely lays out, this is not normal. None of this is normal. And Barack Obama also lays out that he's very concerned about the 72 million people that voted for Donald Trump, whose worldview is largely informed by radical right-wing media, exactly as I've been talking about for the last several months. Take a listen to this.
72 million people voted for Donald Trump. What does that say to you about the state of this country?
Well, what it says is that we are still deeply divided. The power of that alternative worldview that's presented in the media that those voters consume, it carries a lot of weight.
Are you worried about that?
Yes. It's very hard for our democracy to function if we are operating on just completely different sets of facts.
But it's clear as we sit here today, we're not going to have a peaceful transition. I think about John McCain calling, George and Laura Bush welcoming you and Michelle Obama to the White House.
Could not have been more gracious.
I remember you inviting Donald Trump to the White House.
If you succeed, then the country succeeds.
I wish that you succeed because we want the country to succeed.
Right.
He does not seem to have taken a page out of any of those playbooks.
No.
So what is at stake here?
Well, look, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris will be the next vice president. There is no legal basis. But
he's getting support from members of the Republican Party who are not challenging him.
And that has been disappointing.
Yeah.
But it's been sort of par for the course during these 4 years. They obviously didn't think there was any fraud going on because they didn't say anything about it for the first 2 days.
Barack Obama was also asked about his demeanor on the campaign trail when he was out there for Joe Biden over the last few weeks. And Barack Obama pointed out that he was not so much going in on Trump. He was stating facts. He was just repeating things Trump said verbatim.
It wasn't personal. Actually,
You didn't have a I've had it moment?
The truth is, everything I said, I was just stating facts.
You've got a president right now, he wants full credit for an economy that he inherited. He wants zero blame for the pandemic he ignored.
It was out of character for you to speak up, Mr. President, that way.
I was not the person who, in a White House briefing room, said, how is bleach the way to solve COVID? I wasn't doing a routine. I was repeating words that I heard.
We talked about how it is really difficult to massively deprogram millions of cultists. And case in point, last week, I took a very interesting call from a fellow YouTuber who has a small channel who said, David, I was able to do it. I deprogrammed a Trumpist. And I said, great. Well, so how did it happen? And the guy said, well, I had him on my YouTube channel for 3 hours for a one-on-one conversation. And that is a very difficult timeline for the massive deprogramming of 72 million people. Now, you can say you don't have to deprogram all 72 million. If you can deprogram 10, 15% of them, you're already shifting the electoral balance dramatically. But the first step to massive deprogramming has to be massive denormalization. It has to be the masses must realize, they must again come to realize that this is not normal, that it's whacked. I don't really know how to do it. One thing I thought about over the weekend was, would the realization that Trump doesn't care about them play a role in the deprogramming? And what I mean by that is Donald Trump's supporters are people that Trump wouldn't be caught dead with. Most of Trump's supporters are people Trump has spent his entire life avoiding by flying private and living where he has lived and so on and so forth. And you just have to look at this weekend for a perfect example. There was this big protest in favor of Trump in D.C., people going crazy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Trump literally drives by the protest waving from inside his armored vehicle on his way to spend the weekend playing golf. He doesn't care about them. And I'm just thinking out loud here. If Trump supporters came to really understand that Trump doesn't give two you-know-whats about them, would that help to deprogram them? And I'm reminded of an LBJ quote, Lyndon B. Johnson, the former president, who said, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, this was the vocabulary of the time, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. That's who Trump has targeted and who primarily has to be deprogrammed. So bottom line, I'm glad Barack Obama is saying these things. I'm disgusted and horrified that things like this have to be said, that it has to be mentioned. Trump continuing to claim he won is a disaster for the United States. It's an embarrassment. Trump attacking the media, Trump attacking these fundamental institutions. The fact that we have to mention, hey, guys, by the way, this is bad. This isn't normal. That's the tragedy. And a peaceful transfer of power, of course, is important. Joe Biden won. That's not a controversial thing to say, or at least it shouldn't be. But 86% of Trump voters don't believe that Joe Biden legitimately won. I imagine that as we get closer to inauguration, that number will decline. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. One of the things I make a priority on the show is not to perpetuate stigma for things that don't deserve it. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about many things where we should all just be respectful adults, period, and we would be better off. And Blue Chew can increase performance and give you that extra confidence you may be looking for. BlueChew.com, blue like the color blue, is the first chewable with the same FDA-approved ingredient as in Viagra and Cialis. It can be taken day or night, even on a full stomach, since it's chewable. Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed doctors. You don't have to go to a doctor's office. You don't have to wait in line at a pharmacy. It ships right to your door in a discreet package. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, it's cheaper than a pharmacy. And best of all, no more awkwardness. We've got a special deal for our viewers and listeners. Go to bluechew.com. Get your first shipment free when you use our promo code Pakman. That's Pakman. Pay just $5 shipping. That's BLUE chew.com. Promo code Pakman to try it totally free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice. And we thank them for sponsoring the David Pakman Show.